Hello, I'm your host, Leonard Duncan. Welcome to a new episode of ATV-TALK and Motorsports Podcast. Please join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We bring you interviews with industry professionals, live events, live news about the motorsports industry in every episode. Enjoy the show. David Eller from Team Phoenix, welcome to ATV Talk. This has been a long time coming. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, I'm excited. I know a lot of our guys have been with you, and they told me that. I said, man, you really need to sit down and talk to him because he asked some solid questions. So here we are.
Well, you are running one of the most successful race teams in the history of ATV, period. I mean, we can talk about Honda. We can talk about, the company that I work for. We can talk about some of the other independent companies. But right now, one of your riders is breaking records every time he gets on the bike.
Yeah, I explain that to him too every weekend. I tell him, I said, your goal is to set another record. And even though you're breaking your own record, this is your goal every time you go out there. So
Exactly. And he's doing it and he's listening, and you must have something in that bag of tricks that's drawing these people to you. Um, you've been around the industry a little while. You've also done some racing. I don't know much about your racing career.
yeah, I rode. I'm from the bike world, and we came up and I did the Loretta Lynn's charge, and I've been there five times, 5 years. I never had any luck there. Had a couple good motos, but never was a decorated Loretta Lynn guy. Had some good mini O finishes. Finished fifth in there one year in A class. Just did the pro stuff for a few years and never had success there. And but I did make it to that level. And as I got older, it was just time to go to work. And I give work the same effort that I felt like I gave racing. And as work continued to grow, I felt like we should give back. And if I'm going to give back, I want to give back to, the things that I understood. And a big part of that was racing. And I wanted to give back to racing. So that's been the drive for a long time.
Let me ask you this question before we roll into some of these others, substantial information that I want to get from you. Is when you were racing, what skills did you take from that into the business world and into running your life?
I think a bigger part of my understanding racing and understanding what we do was failure. I think it was more the failure than the success. I understand when you have bad days and you can prepare and do everything right, and come race day it just didn't click. And sometimes you can take a whole week off and not ride, and that'll be the fastest you ever rode that weekend. So there's no rhyme or reason to that. And I understand the bad days. And I think that's what helps me understand riders and understand, what they go through. I'm sympathetic to the bad days. I understand those more than I understand the good days. And to accept and help them understand that, look, it's in the past, it's done. Let's just look forward. And I think that's been a big part of our success, because I've had people ask me, like, what do you think? There's been great champions that have done teams that didn't have the success we've had. And I said, I think it's just because I understand the bad days better than the good days.
That's huge, because if you look at racing in general, it's a failed endeavor.
It is. It is. But you look at baseball. I mean, I played baseball and football, and you look at baseball, if you get a hit 3 out of 10 times at bat, you're a successful hitter. And so it's tough that it's not just racing. I mean, it's every sport, and we just seem to we only recognize the successes, or the championships, or the wins. And sometimes you got to find the small things, and let's celebrate that. Like we had with Supercross this year. Gavin Towers, and Gavin is a rookie. And at the end of the season in Salt Lake, Cole Davies was exceptional for star, and but at the last round he got hurt in practice, and Gavin made the main event, and we went into the trailer at the end of the night, and I put my arm around him and I said, "You're the only rookie this year to make every main event." And he looked at me and I said, "Let's celebrate the small victories. You're the only rookie to make every main event." And that'll never be in the press and it'll never be anywhere when somebody reads it, but it made him smile and it made him understand that, let's take this and go. So, we have to look for those kind of victories.
Is the mentality that you have for understanding the bad days, does that roll into the business world as well?
It does because, when we have jobs that let's say we have a job that we get to the end of it and it lost money. And we sit down with the project managers and we go through it. Well, then let's learn from it. What did we do wrong? What do we need to do different? How do we need to allow for the next one? And so, it's not everything. Like I said, we have to understand and learn from the bad days. And it's the same way with racing. We learn from the mistakes or the bad starts or the bad lines or, whatever we have to learn from that. And that's what we go. So, we just it's racing is a big part of competitiveness. So when I'm looking to hire somebody in the construction world, I would hire somebody that played sports before I would hire somebody straight out of college, because I want them to understand a team concept. I want them to understand, that they want to be the best or they want to win. And if you can take that drive and you can put it in anything that we do, whether it's building a building or doing the plumbing or the electrical, and they want to be the best at what they're doing, that's the guy I want. That's the guy that we want to take and take to and he'll be great. I mean, that's exactly what we're looking for.
So let's roll that into your successful construction company and you build a racing company. Is it built the same way?
Is the race team built the same as the construction side?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, yes. When we talk to people, whether it's riders or mechanics, you want to know what their goals are, and what drove them to get to the point to where they're at, and you want to meet the families. You want to meet, what how we got here, and once you understand all that, then you say, okay, can we help this? Can we help this rider? Can we help him get to what his goals are? And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't, and sometimes you can take a rider and you can get him to a certain level, and maybe we're not the team that's going to take him to the next level, but we got him this far, and it's okay to hand him off. It's okay to be like, hey, we got you here. And but yeah, I think it's the same. I think it's the same concept.
And you have an open relationship with a developing rider that goes from an independent team to a factory team, and you still have that open relationship with that
Yeah,
individual.
yeah, I think we do. I think in a lot of times, sometimes it gets tough. I mean, sometimes decisions. Let's use Cullen Park as an example. Cullen's been with us a long time, and Cullen's, I mean, he's been around long enough. He's like a son to me now. But you take a kid that rode at Loretta's and had a fourth and a fifth. So he was not a standout at Loretta's in the A class. But then he came with, he stayed with us and he won Supercross Rookie of the Year. In fact, finished second in the Arena Cross Series, and then we take him and he got his first podium this year and finished fifth in the Supercross this year, in the points. And so, to take a kid, and the manufacturers, whether it's Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, any of them, they're looking at teams like us. Can you develop riders? Can you take a kid and move him? It's easy to go buy results. It's easy to go find a fast guy and just pay him, and now you got results. But can you take a kid and develop him and have him come through and get results for you? And that's the rewarding part of what we do.
In the development process of your riders, um, like your construction guys, you said something about the athletic portion of picking them. What else goes into picking a team rider or a team personnel?
Um, so I got to go back to, we had a baseball scout come and talk to us one time, and we were playing. And I've never forgot this, and I've used this in my life. He said, when we come and watch you guys play ball, what do you think we're coming to watch? Well, how hard we hit or how fast we throw or how fast we run. He said, no, I already knew all that. I wouldn't be here if I didn't know that. He said, let me tell you what I watch. I want to see you. I don't want to see you hit a home run. I want to see you strike out. And I want to see how you handle it. I want to see you throw the ball away, and I want to see how you recover from it. And then the last thing I watch, I want to see how you interact with your team, and I want to see how you interact with your parents. And so when somebody says, hey, you need to look at this kid, you need to really look at this, this could be a good kid for you. That's what we watch. I don't want to see him win a race. I want to see him crash. And I want to see how he handles it when he comes back. I want to see how he interacts with his mom and dad if his dad's trying to tell him he should have done something different. That's the stuff you're looking for. It's easy to go find a kid that's, oh, he wins. Okay, go get him. Well, he's not always going to win. And then how do we handle that? So when I'm looking at riders, that's a big part of what we look at is how they handle not winning.
So, how directly involved are families, and how do you look at so personal experience? You have a rider that you like, has the skill set that you want, has the personality you want, but the family baggage that comes with it is unacceptable.
It,
How,
and we've had that through all the years we've had that a few times, and you have to have that hard conversation with the parents, and you got to let them know that they did a great job. They did a great job to get their kid to the level of where he's at or she. I mean, we've had we have you know, but we've hired them to do a job, and just let them do their job now. I mean, we appreciate where you're at, and we appreciate what you've done, but now just let him do his job. And if they don't agree with the team or don't agree with certain things or think they could do something better, we'll be glad to let you go back. If you want to go back and ride for your mom and dad, you can go do that. And the biggest part of it is like, no, I need the next level. I need to step away from this and need the next level. And being able to do that is huge. Now we've had some situations where it couldn't, but for the most part, it's just let them do their job. That's what we've hired them to do. We've hired them to ride. So let them do their job.
how much different is the ATV industry versus the motorcycle industry when it comes to racers in general?
Um, it's really as far as racers, I think the expectations of the motorcycle industry is bigger because of what they're seeing with the success of some of the champions that are out there now. In the ATV world, it's not as the the brass ring is not as brass when you get to it. But what I've tried to explain to our guys is let's look at the percentages. In the motorcycle world, if you've got 1,000 pros, and of 1,000 pros, well, you don't have that many. You got probably 200 pro riders in the country. So of 200 pro riders, you have 10 of them that are really making a living. So that's only 5%. So if you go to the ATV world and you say, okay, we got 25 pros from the West and the East Coast. So that means that there's only, what, two of them? If it's the same 5%, that's really making a living. So the percents are still the same. They just have to understand that it's not that much different. It's just that the crowds aren't as big. But
Right.
and when people talk about ATV racing, they say, "Oh, well, I see it's really going downhill." Well, have you been to a flat track race or a hill climb? I mean, it's not ATV is not the smallest circle of what's going on out there right now. but it's just they've seen the numbers go down a little bit and they're concerned about that. But it's not, it's still okay. I believe it's still okay.
Well, flat track winning purse is hasn't changed in what, 25 years, 30
There you
years?
go. Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, and it's just I mean, and GNCC, I mean, we are active obviously there, and GNCC, your XC1 crowd is 15 riders, and maybe sometimes 16 or 17 riders on the front row of XC1. Well, the pro class at ATV motocross is 16, 17, 18 riders. So as big as GNCC is still the pro class is still the same size.
Right.
So, it's just people just they get nervous when they see the number sometimes, but if you really look at it, it's still okay. I believe it's still okay.
You get to deal with factories, and I don't want to get off track of where I'm going with talking about the development, but you get to deal with the factories,
Hmm.
Honda, Yamaha,
Right.
whoever, Suzuki,
Yeah.
Kawasaki,
Yeah.
Katoom. Um, why are they so reluctant? Not the blue guys, but why is everybody else so reluctant to get into that world?
The when we were working with Honda, we talked to them about the ATV side, because we had come from, we had through with JB, and for Jody Bateman, we were helping with the Can-Am program. So we were I won't say a big part, but we were part of that, with Joel and Jeffrey. And when they pulled that support, I've had a history with Honda from before, and so I reached out to them. And the agreement was that if I helped them with their arena cross program, they would help us with some support for the ATV. Well, Honda sells a ton of parts still, for the ATV, the quads. And so Honda wanted to support that still, but they just wasn't making them anymore. There wasn't enough sales for them to open that production line back up again. So we had went to the AMA and asked for a provision in the rule if we could run fuel injection. If we could run fuel injection, then we could make the Honda be competitive to where the Yamaha was currently at. And had a lot of opposition at that time. And so it kind of forced our hand that we had to start looking at running a different color. Well, now I really wish the opposition wouldn't have been there, because then Honda would have supported us trying to beat Yamaha, and Yamaha would have supported the other guys to try to beat Honda. But when that didn't happen, now you're opened it up where it's just a completely Yamaha class. And there's been a lot of speculation about that, about the Yamaha only class. But when you went to Loretta Lynn's in the motorcycle world, the PW50s are all Yamahas. The 125 class was, all KTMs and Yamahas. I mean, it's not different. It's just seemed different at this level. But it's the same in the motorcycle world for some of the different classes there too. So, Honda just, but it's not just the ATV world. You got to look at a Honda as a manufacturer that they're not interested in the 85 two stroke, the 125 two stroke. Honda's focus is the 250 and the 450, and that's it. And so their focus just really changed. It's not good or bad. It's just this is where their focus is at now. So
Yeah. Since we've been a Honda family forever, my dad worked at a Honda dealer, was certified Honda mechanic. And it seemed like when Mr. Honda was alive, Honda was a different company to deal with.
yeah, and see, we don't deal with it at that level. That's past us. I mean, the people that we deal with are the support sides, and those guys have been great. I mean, the people we deal with, we've been Honda supported for what 11 years now, and we those guys have been great with us. I have nothing, nothing but good things to say about our relationship with them, and our relationship with Yamaha is new. We've been with them a few years now, and getting to know the people at Yamaha has been great too. I mean, those guys have been great to work with as well. Um, in our shop, we have a Yamaha side and we have a Honda side, and we have to take pictures one way and you turn around and take pictures the other way to make sure that each one is not in the other pictures. But both of them know what we do, and we cover a lot of stuff with what we do, and everybody's okay.
And they understand and are okay with it.
Yeah, because Yamaha understands that we give them a good umbrella, with what we're doing, competing in both series. I mean, there's not another team doing that, and so they're really, I think they've been great because of what we've been able to do for them. Honda knows that they don't make that machine to compete, so we're not competing against them. So, so each one of them, we just wear blue shirts some days and red shirts some days. Um, it's just how it works.
Right, right. That's pretty cool. Let's get back a little bit on track about team building and picking specific individuals, because we talked a lot about riders, but
Yep.
you also have mechanics and other support staff that are in this equation. How do you break those guys down to make sure that you're getting the right person for the right rider, or the right rider for the right mechanic?
We really let them each pick that, we've had some riders that want to work with certain mechanics, and we've had certain mechanics that say, like, look, let me work with him, and I can make this work. So we let them make that call for a little bit. I really don't just crunch two people together. I remember the first time I saw Joel ride, I was impressed with what I saw, and then finding the right guy that can keep Joel calm, it was a challenge, and Gary does a great job with that, and so does Jim. I mean, both Gary and Jim do. So it's really letting them do it. And if it doesn't work, I've had riders come and say, David, I need somebody else. And I've had mechanics come and say, look, I can't just make it work. He won't listen. And so you do get that. And but we just keep moving people around till we find the right chemistry.
Where do you fit as management in all of the workings of the motorcycle side versus the ATV side?
Um, I think that I'm involved with maybe the last decision. If the decision changes, maybe the looks of the team, or the decision changes the role of certain people. But for the most part, I have people in place that, like on the GNCC side, I have people in place that make sure those quads are built right and that stuff's took care of at the track. In the ATV world, in Joel's side, the stuff's built in our shop, the motors are built and the bikes are built. So I'm not really in that day-to-day stuff. Most of mine would probably be, the sponsorship negotiations, making sure that our contracts are done and the things are in place, and those guys know what our responsibilities are for our sponsors and what they're expecting from us and things like that. Um, if I'm involved, then there's usually something wrong, and I'm there to try to fix it. Sometimes people, when they don't see me at the races, they think it's that I don't want to be there, but I love racing. If I'm not at one race, that doesn't, I'm just at another race. Sometimes we're racing three different places on some weekends. And I'll just go to the ones where I think I need to be there. Um, but I don't see myself as a micromanager where I have to be involved with every decision. Those guys do a great job. I got really great people over there.
The
And we,
expectation is known
yep,
and the levels are all reached.
yes, yes. And
And
if
you,
it's not, that's when we talk. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Now let's go into the other side of it. When you're out picking sponsors, it's not like picking a concrete company or a lumber guy to buy your lumber from. How do you sort that for your specific guys?
That's tougher because I'm loyal. I'm loyal. And through all the years of racing, we've only had two riding gear sponsors in 20 years. And I will make it work. If somebody comes and says, "Hey, we have to cut budget, we have to do this," then I'm not looking to drop that person. Let's figure out what we can do to help each other, because it is a partnership. And sometimes we have to help them through some of their times, because there's going to be times when we don't give them the results that they expect, and we hope they stick by us too. So I don't really. It's really not as hard as you think it is, because people, we all know each other, and when you have something that's like, David, we don't have the budget this year and we got to do something different, and we're okay if you go talk to somebody else. Well, then you already know who to reach out to. There's not that many people that's doing the things that we need, and as long as you don't burn the bridges, and everybody and the communication is always open, it works. It works. So
As far as the picking a new sponsor, is there a criteria that you're looking for, or is it just something that maybe it's a product that you need that you're looking for?
that's tough, because let's use helmet as an example. If we were going to change helmets, I'm not going to ask our riders to wear something that's not 100% safe. And so I got to make sure that what we're negotiating is good. Same way with boots. The items that are crucial, you don't want to cut corners.
Right.
If honestly, I'm trying to think of an example. I mean, tires, we've been so loyal for so long. I mean, plastic, we did change plastic in the last couple of years as far as our plastic supplier. And those guys were looking for a team that would give them a lot of social media in the States, because they're a French-based team. So, or French-based product. So, we were excited to be able to give them what they were looking for. So, there's some stuff like that. But for the most part, we might have a relationship with one guy and he leaves one company and goes to another company, and then he reaches out and says, "Hey, look, if you ever looking to change, I'm over here now." And so relationships are the biggest part of it. You don't really, at this level, you don't send out resumes. That's not what you do at this level.
You pick up a phone.
You pick up the phone. Yep.
Right. So the hardest part for me is I've worked for a company my whole life that all we ever had to do is pick up a phone.
Yeah.
I started this. Are you looking for the best suspension technology for your sport ATV? Look no further than Elka Suspension, the industry leader in sport ATV suspension technology. With championship wins in prestigious events such as the Dakar Rally, Score, Best in the Desert, ATV MX, Cross Country, and Works, Elka Suspension has established itself as the go-to choice for athletes and enthusiasts alike. But they don't just stop at ATVs. They're constantly expanding into new markets, including UTVs, trucks, SUVs, pit bikes, snowmobiles, and more. Their commitment to innovation and quality means they're always looking to improve and adapt so you can enjoy a smooth ride wherever you go. Want to learn more about what Elka Suspension can do for you? Visit their website at elkasuspension.com or give them a call at 450-655-4855. They will always be happy to answer your questions and help you find the perfect suspension solution for your needs. I had to build resumes. I
Yeah.
had to build media packages. I had to build packages to let everybody know what we're doing. And
Yeah.
I'm learning how to do that. And yes, I still try to pick up the phone,
Right.
but with media, they want to see data.
But you're 100% right. So if I was going to try to go out and get, like Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola would want to see a media package that shows how many people do you touch and what's the demographics and what's the age groups. And so now I'm reaching out to all the series that we race for, asking for their demographics so they can send it to. And then you're trying to put all that in a portfolio, and then you got to put all your riders in there, and in their media touch and how many followers they have. And now I'm getting into a world that I'm not comfortable being in, and we have to get I got to get an advertising person, because if I just put all the stuff that everybody sends me, it's going to be a 20, 30 page portfolio, and people are going to be bored by the time they're reading through it. So it is tough to, to make a big shiny bow and attract the really outside sponsors.
Oh yeah, and that's something that the ATV world is struggling to do. But
Right.
how do you set up to prepare for a season, whether it be on the motorcycle side or both?
As far as what are you asking? Like as far as our
Preparation to
track?
get ready for 2026.
As far as the, like we look at contracts, we look at riders. We have some riders that people have approached. We have one rider that'll be leaving this year, and so I got to look to replace him, and I think I've got that done. So you start working on your rider and your personnel first, and then as your contracts are expiring, you start reaching out to see what's on their minds for the next year and how you're going to do this, and we have a few of those this year as well. And then if you've got your rider secured and now you got your sponsor secured, and then you start working into getting ready for the off season. Well, the off season is taking the practice bikes or the practice quads and getting them ready to either sell or cycle out, and start getting the list together to build the new stuff so that the whether it's a Joel or or the bike guys, getting their practice stuff ready for them to go and start training, make sure they have extra motor. So our off season sometimes is as busy as our race season.
How does the fan base affect any portion of your preparation in any of the series that you race?
It's really, you just got to look at what you try to do. So many giveaways, or you try to do so much merchandise that you try to get people to hang out at your tent, whether it's coloring books or whether it's stickers and decals and hats or whatever you're giving out. And then you go back and look like what was the most, exciting thing? What was this? So on your fan base is mostly getting, getting product ordered, your giveaways ordered, stuff like that. You know, we've, you know, we've had fans reach out that were very, not happy when tough decisions had to be made and you had to let riders go. And so you deal with some tough social media sometimes on the negative side. So it's not always great, and you got to deal with it both ways.
You know, you've been doing this for a number of years. You've been through the highs, the lows. What are some of the biggest moments that you can remember on the high side and on the low side?
Oh wow. You know, you want to say championships were the high parts, but the different victories. I'm going to tell on Rich Hetrick here on this one. This is one of the high points for me. Last year we were at Loretta's, and Joel was about 3 laps from finishing his second moto, which would be a perfect season and another championship. And Rich was up on the tower, and I was telling him to come down. I said, "Come here," because I was down at the gate where Joel would exit the track. And Rich didn't want to come down because he wanted to watch the end of the race. And I kept telling him, I was yelling at him to come down here, to come down. And he got aggravated at me, and he went down, and he come down the steps, and he come over and he said, "What? I can't see here." I said, "Rich, your son is fixing to set an AMA record, 2 of them, for a perfect season, and this breaks the record for most wins. I think Dad should be the first one to hug him and not me." And Rich looked at me, and when Joel come off the track and Dad was the first one to hug him, that's a big moment for me. That's what we do. It ain't just winning races; it's that. And we sat over there at the truck that night, and Joel come over to me and he told me, he said, "Dad told me what you told him." And I said, "Well, Joel, I'm not here to take that place. You're here to do a job. But to celebrate that kind of stuff, your family needs to be part of it." And that's that's one of the high points, for me to be part of making that happen. Um, to watch. with Kyle Peters in the arena cross. I mean, we hold the AMA record there. And to see, him and his dad and his family and how close they are and everything that went into that last championship in Vegas. And, when he won it and it was a big deal. And so the highs are that, the lows, I think the lows are the injuries. It's not necessarily losing a race, but to see somebody, like Joel crash at Daytona and, we don't know if his back's messed up or not, to watch, Kyle Peters break his neck and we got to figure out how to get him home from St. Louis. And so, the lows are the injuries, I think, if a race don't go good, there's always another race. But when the injuries happen, that makes it tough.
Yeah, I would have to say when I was being a race mechanic, at that level, that was the biggest fear I always had.
Yeah, it is. It's tough.
Breaking the bike, you can get over that. You can get off over a crash with no injury. You can get over all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
But the injuries, I used to work with a guy named Doug Eichner, and he's the only man I've ever zipped his pants up, because he couldn't do
Yeah,
it himself.
it is. It's tough. And and sometimes, and I hate to be that guy, but sometimes when the injuries happen and these guys get hurt, the first thing that goes through your head was like, was it the machine? Was it something we did wrong? And because you don't want that on you either. It's like, okay, if they made a mistake and it happened, it's just part of the mistake. But if the machine caused it, then that's on all of our shoulders. And so, we always make sure. I mean, I feel 95% sure that these bikes and quads are checked over by two people before they get on them and ride them, or they better be.
That, you know what, I as a mechanic, that's my biggest fear.
Yeah, exactly right.
I always told myself, if I'm ever the reason why one of my guys gets hurt or one of my gals, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'll do it again.
And it goes the other way too, because a rider can come in and say he feels something or he hears something. And it doesn't make sense in what they're saying. But you can't, as a rider, all of us that had rode at some time or another, you got to trust what he's saying.
Right.
And we've had that with Joel. I mean, use Joel as an example. I mean, Joel's come in and it's like, I heard something. Well, what did you hear? I don't know. It's something in the motor. Well, what do? We take the motor out and we change the motor. And then everybody that's on the outside looking in is like, oh, they got motor problems. Well, no, you really don't. You're just trusting that somebody said he heard something. And the motor comes back to the shop and they take it apart and they don't see anything. But you have to trust what the rider's telling you.
But that doesn't mean it wouldn't have broke.
Right, exactly right. We've had that at Supercross with Dylan Ferrandis. He come in, he said, I hear a noise. Well, what did you hear? I don't know. It's a noise. Well, what did it do? I only hear it one time. Then change the motor.
Right.
But then the press says, oh, they got problems over there. They're changing motors. No, we're just making sure that we're okay. I mean,
Did you learn that over time with dealing with riders, or was it something that you went into building the team or being a team owner knowing that?
no, it kind of goes back to when I rode. I've had two situations when I rode that I heard something and felt something that I couldn't explain it to the mechanic when I came in. And I came in, this is when I was riding a CR250, and I came in and I said, it's flat up top. It won't pull. And they took it over to the burnout pit and they rode it and they come back and they said, there's nothing wrong with the bike. And I went out for the second practice and it was bad. And I said, I don't know what, I can't tell you what it's doing. I can only tell you what I feel. And anyway, they took the cylinder off and the power valve wasn't turned up and it wasn't opening all the way up. And I'm like, I'm not a mechanic. I can only tell you what I feel.
Right.
And so I understand when somebody comes in, if a rider comes in and says he feels something, I'm like, you got to trust him. He can't tell you what it's doing. all riders aren't mechanics. It's just there's something you got to trust him, and so I've just I've had that. So
The
you know,
best dyno in the world is a
yeah.
mechanic in your pants. You know, that's the way I see it. Um, before I ask this next question, what series exactly are you involved in?
We do the we do the AMA Arena Cross Series. We do the East and West 250 Supercross Series, and we do the 450 Supercross Series with Dylan Ferrandis. We do the Outdoor Motocross Series. We do the U.S. Sprint Enduro Series, the GNCC Series, and with Joel, we do the ATV Motocross. And on GNCC, we do both quads and bikes. So we have 9 total riders through all the disciplines of what we do.
You guys are busy.
Well, I kept thinking that if we made it bigger, if we gave sponsors more coverage, if we were big enough that somebody could say, look, I'm part of Phoenix and I'm in 6 series or 7 series, and this is what these guys are doing. I thought that if I built something that nobody else was doing, it would attract, you know, it would attract the Red Bulls or the, you know, whatever, surf detergent, like when Jeff Glass was doing it way back when, the big outside sponsor. And it just hasn't, sometimes I think it hurts us more than it helps us, because when you talk to some sponsors, like, well, guys, you guys are such a big footprint. And I said, but would you sponsor our ATV motocross effort? Well, absolutely. Would you sponsor our GNCC effort? Well, yeah. Our supercross effort? Yes. And when you break it out like that, they would support everything that we're doing, but they don't want to support everything in one thing because they think their budget's shot by just doing us. But
Right.
I got to sell it to them like, look, your budget has 5 different line items and you're getting it with just one group. And,
Exactly.
it's been tougher to sell that. And, we've been fortunate. We've won championships in all of those venues. And, we've won Rookie of the Year in Supercross, and we finished on the podium 3 times now in Supercross. But what I'm saying is that we haven't won a Supercross championship and we haven't won an outdoor motocross championship in motorcycles, and probably never will. I mean, the budgets and the effort that goes into that, we're not going to. We don't have that. It takes to beat that. We're not going to go beat Jet Lawrence or Hayden Deegan. We're not. But we've won championships and everything else that we do, and I'm proud of that.
So you just answered my question on future goals, basically, is to win those titles, but you may not ever achieve them.
You know, I've had somebody ask me that before, and I said, I don't think that we're going to win anything that we hadn't already won. Everything that we're doing now, we're just repeating what we've already won. And I don't know, I don't know what's going to continue to drive us to do that unless, the support and the sponsorship comes up and says, hey guys, we want you to go after a Supercross championship, and here's some more support to do that. Because for everything that we're doing, something really cool this year, other than Bryson Neal because he's a new father, every rider that races for Phoenix Racing this year will get to compete overseas, for to represent Phoenix and represent USA, and I think that's a cool thing for us.
That's
Joel, yeah, Joel will race in the Netherlands for Quad Cross of Nations, for Team USA. Cody Barnes and JoJo Cunningham will go to ISDE in Italy for Team USA. Taylor Jones will race ISDE, but she's riding for her country, which is Australia, but she's still a Phoenix rider. Grayson and John Glotta is going to do Pontevu. Dylan and Cullen will go do Supercross in Paris, and so they'll do that there. So every rider we have, and Mike Witowski will go in over to Japan and do the JNCC series. He did Osaka last year. So every rider we have will get to compete on the other side of the world.
You just keep answering my questions before I ask them. Um, you know, that's pretty awesome. What do you do for fun?
Oh, wow. Um, I don't know. I mean, I enjoy going to to classic car runs, rod runs. I mean, I'm a big gearhead still. I still enjoy that kind of stuff to get away from racing and go do that, to go go to the old gasser drag races, to go private car show. I mean, private. I've got a chance to meet some really cool people, and I go to a lot of their private collections and go see different stuff all over, the country. And so I guess that would be the fun part, to go see other people's stuff. Um, Racing ain't, yeah, racing's not fun for me, you know.
Is there any racer in any form that you want to meet?
That I haven't met. Oh man, that's tough. I've always been a in the motorcycle world. I mean, David Bailey was was I always looked up to him. He was in this area. We actually rode when he rode. I mean, he would come to the races and he was the best in the world. And David never took a dollar. He show up and race local races, and he said, "I get paid to do this. I'm not here to take your money." And I've got to sit down and hang out with him. And Brock Glover. I mean, Brock's always been. I'm a hero. I mean, that's my hero, and I've got him in my phone, and if I text him or call him, he always answers. Um, I don't know. I really don't. You know, you go back to the Carmichaels and all of those guys. I mean, we already know those guys. The ATV world. I mean, Tim Farr. I mean, Tim's. I consider him a friend. These guys. I've met them. I don't. Somebody that I hadn't met. I don't think so. Um, I think. I think I've met all my heroes.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What's your favorite bike?
I still bleed green.
Really?
Because I can't just cause through my amateur stuff. I had some Team Green support, and some of my best races were in the B class, and loved the Kawasaki's back then. And everybody, when I went to the pro class, I was riding Hondas, and everybody remembers me as a Honda guy, and I am. I mean, now I'm a I bleed red and and Yamaha. I mean, all of them. I think it's just pick your favorite color. I mean, all of them are good. We won a championship with Suzuki with Tyler Bright back in 2009 in Arena Cross. So, we've won championships with Suzuki and Honda and Yamaha in the pro stuff. So, yeah, it's been a fun ride. Been a fun ride.
That's incredible. What's your dream race?
Oh man. I'm excited to go to Pontevu. I haven't seen that. I've watched the videos and watched it, so I'm excited to see that. Um, you know, some of the old stuff, like watching some of the old Carlsbad stuff, the old saddlebike stuff. I mean, I'm still a fan of those races. I don't,
Did you get to come out to the West Coast and race Carlsbad?
I did not, but I had an opportunity maybe. Oh gosh, maybe 10 years ago or at least 8 years ago, I had the original Carlsbad. I have the saddleback sign, the entrance sign.
Oh, nice.
I have that in our shop. And they actually did an article on it in Racer X. I have the sign in my shop. And I am really excited and proud of that. It's still in the buckets with the dirt still on the poles where they got it out of the ground.
That's
So,
freaking awesome because, I got to grow up going to the Carlsbad GP. We
really
raced multiple different, I raced motorcycles there. I raced three-wheelers there. I raced four-wheelers there.
awesome. Yeah.
You know?
That's what I said. That's a big part. And I was digging through. I was at a swap meet, like just car stuff, and I found it's a hot rod magazine, and it was from 1970. It's in the 70s. I got it over there in an envelope in my drawer, and it's got a whole 3-page article in there from the Trans AMA series at Carlsbad introducing motocross to the United States, and it's in Hot Rod magazine, and I just
That's
think that's so cool. Yeah,
well, I mean, one of my biggest memories of Carlsbad, is Ricky Johnson when he was
yeah,
Ricky Johnson rode for Yamaha, but he rode for my dad before he went to Yamaha.
really.
Yeah, my dad actually was the guy that built his first race bike.
That is awesome. I seen a really cool interview with Rick, and he was talking about the championships he won, and we're a Rick Johnson fan too. Back in the two hip days and all that. But he said that he always felt guilty of the championships he won because he felt like those should have been David's because him and David trained so hard together. Then when David got hurt, them two were above everybody else. And I just thought that was such a class act. And to be at Redbud a couple years ago, and we went to the champions dinner together, and to see O'Mara and Rick and David get their picture made together, from the old Destinations days, that was really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was freaking. We loved that era because Honda was dominating everything.
Yeah, yeah. And to go,
That's pretty
to go to
awesome.
Honda, when I've been out there and you go to some of the, they used to have a place that called the Offsite Warehouse, and all those championship bikes they were in there on racks up on, just to sit and look at them. I mean, they had them wrapped in plastic and you just see them and it's like, why are these not on display somewhere? I mean, these are the real deals. So it was really cool for me to be able to see that stuff.
I don't know if you can see that picture over my shoulder. That's my dad with Valley Honda with one of the XR75s that he built for the team that Ricky rode on.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I tell you,
That's
Southern California back then, because I think Rick and Brock was like in the same, almost the same neighborhood. I think at the
yeah.
time, the guys that
Super
were coming
close.
out of Southern California were just huge. And
So Brock Glover was part of 3B Lightning.
yeah,
Okay. And those are the guys that brought Marty Hart from Louisiana to Southern California. And then Marty ends up riding for Honda on three wheelers.
oh wow, yeah, that's crazy. That's what I said. Those guys, back then it's just, and those guys were so more accessible back then. I mean, you just like I remember sitting in Wendy's at Budds Creek, hanging out with Jeremy McGrath, and to see Jeremy now, we just laugh about how the kids are growing and just normal stuff. Everybody grows up. You don't talk about how fast or how great they were. You're just normal people now, and
And
well, some kind of normal.
so you brought it, you started to bring it up a little bit, accessibility. One of the things that, because I'm on this side of the media block, what's the problem with writers of today, or what do you see as the problem of the writers today not valuing media?
I think it's because it becomes attached to so much negativity as well. You can have an interview like me and you talking, and then there can be 30 negative comments about something that's said. And so how do you protect yourself from that? It's just don't do it. And it's such a sad deal that the keyboard warriors are ruining, the accessibility of where people could be. They want to come out. It ain't that they don't want to. It's just that as soon as I do that, I'm gonna get blasted. Or as soon as I say that, it's gonna be 10 bad things. And it's such a sad deal that that's what it's turned into.
Or you could be like me and just not care.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. And that's what, you wish it could be more like that. But when you have, you're a top rider, and the top rider being paid by certain companies, And if you say something stupid, and then there's 10 negative things that get blasted, and it also gets blasted toward the product of the people that's sponsoring them. And it's like, all right, so what do we do now? So now you just, every time you're trying to figure out damage control. And, it makes it tough. It makes it tough.
You've directed me to a topic that is always in front of me because I grew up with a dad that got to watch Honda. When I came into the professional side of the business with my brother, it was, hey, you got to act like the team Honda guys, act like you belong, act professional, always, be respectful. If your machine breaks, you make sure you push it back, you bring it back, you don't throw your helmet, you don't do all these things. And in today, we have two riders that I think are phenomenally talented, and they're both in the media for negativity. Um, I know that we just mentioned it that there's always haters. Um, but one of the riders that rides for one of these factory teams is just constantly disrespecting fans and other people. How do how does that relate to Team Phoenix? If you have a rider that's potentially a disruptor.
Well, it is tough, but at a certain level, where does winning pass, the bad press? And for a team like Phoenix, we're not going to win, two back-to-back Supercross championships and dominated outdoors. And if you did that and your guy was maybe saying things he shouldn't say, sometimes it gets overlooked a little bit because it's like, well, those guys are winning. Or, is it real? I mean, nobody knows the answer to that either. Is it real or is it just a front for publicity? Is this what we're supposed to do because we need the good guy, bad guy? You know, um, and I'm just using that as an example. We don't know. We don't know what's the narrative as to what we're doing. I don't think that it's that everything is deliberate. I don't think it's that, sometimes we're all going to say something dumb, and I've done it. And so I don't know. I mean, I think that whether it's wrestling or football or baseball or racing motorcycles or racing quads, you need the good guy, bad guy. And the good guy, bad guy sells media.
Do you think the sales of motorcycles go up even though the rider gets bad publicity?
I don't know if it's motorcycles, but I bet it's t-shirts and jerseys. you know,
Because the haters even buy it.
exactly. That's what
It's
I said.
the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Merchandise sales will go,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
so, it's just it's a tough deal, So where's the line? We don't know. That line gets pushed around a lot in the last a lot of years, and it'll get pushed around a lot going forward.
we also come from non-social media era where we didn't have the same haters.
Right,
Or
right,
at least we didn't hear them
yeah,
because they just it wasn't relative in the media because they didn't get to you. They'd have to send you a letter, somehow or things like that, and it just you might get 20 good and one bad, so you didn't even care.
right, right. And you look at the ATV world. When Joel and Chad were racing each other hard. I mean, it was a love hate on both sides. I mean, I seen them two and families, ready to fight at the podium sometime for the way that them two went at it. And so it's competition brings out the best and the worst in people.
Yes, it does. And you know what I think between those guys, just to bring it up, I think they have great respect for each other.
You know, I shouldn't say this because um, you know, the people that we compete against I don't like. That's just it ain't personal. It's not. If you play football, the guy that you're lining up across from, you don't like him during that time. And so, the people that we race against, a lot of times I don't want to get to know them. I don't. That's you're the competition, and that's just my mentality. So it's not personal. It's not. But to watch, I said something to Joel last year. His starts weren't Joel, and I asked Joel. I said, "What's going on? I mean, do you need, or do we need to do something different? Tell me what you need in the machine. Tell me what you need." And Joel said, "I miss Chad." And I said, "What?" And he said, "When me and Chad were racing close, it was who had the fastest lap, and then it was who got first gate pick, and the other one got inside the other one. And the first turn was a big part of deciding what was going to happen that day." And he said, "I just missed Chad." And I said, "Well, we got to figure this out." And so Chad did bring out the best of Joel, or the worst, and, both ways. But Chad brought out, what Joel knew he had to do to try to win. And, and I think Joel did the same to Chad. That's what I said. It's, you know, but I can't speak for Chad. That's what I was saying, is that I didn't really talk to Chad much. I just saw the mental game and the things that went on at the track, and, just make sure that Joel understands what he's seeing and what's going on was my job. But, I respect Chad a lot. I really do. What Chad has been able to do, especially with, um, the body that he's been given. And I mean, to be tall, to be able to move around like he had to move around, and then with the injuries he had, and to still be able to compete at the level that he was doing that. I mean, phenomenal. Phenomenal. I mean, I got nothing but good things to say about, that part of it.
The medical elevation and the dietary changes and the training changes
Yeah.
that we've made over the last 20, 30 years is incredible for athletes.
It 100%, um, and, I mean, and that's what I said, for Joel to move around on a quad like he moves around on it, and to be as small as he is, and to not be as strong as a Chad or even a Bryce. I mean, Bryce is taller, and I would say upper body stronger. That's so. Um, how these guys, bikes or quads, how they make these things go as fast as they go is, it's amazing.
It very much so. Um, as we wrap it up here, uh, if you were going to give advice to a new team owner, what would that look like?
Hmm.
Are you ready to be captivated by one of nature's masterpieces? Discover the breathtaking beauty of Antelope Slot Canyon, a natural wonder in Page, Arizona. Join us on a guided tour and immerse yourself in the mystical light beams, rich colors, and serene landscapes. With tours at prime sunbeam hours, experience photographer's paradise and capture memories that will last a lifetime. Comfortable shoes, a camera, and a smile are all you need for this adventure. Book your journey today at Antelope Slot Canyon Tours and let the canyon enchant you. Please visit us now, antelopeslotcanyon.com, for more details.
You got to have a passion for what we're doing. I mean, if you're looking at it and you think, okay, I can start a team and we can make money, well, that's a lie. If you're looking at it because it's an ego thing and you're trying to do that, then don't do it. I mean, if you realize that you can help make people, um, help the support of being a team guy to help make, don't lose sight of that you're helping these kids chase their dreams. And that's as simple as it is. This is what you're helping do. And when you lose sight of that and you think it's like, well, how many wins or how many championships or the money or the whatever, then you lose sight of why you started doing it. And, just you're just helping these kids ride their dirt bikes and their four wheelers. And, just always keep that in perspective. And I've told our riders, I said, enjoy it. Be a kid as long as you can, because being an adult is not all it's made out to be. So just stay a kid as long as you can and ride your dirt bike and your four wheeler. And if we can help them do that, um, I'm proud of that.
Is that what you would tell future riders that are going to listen to this, the youth that may still be in the amateur class?
Absolutely. Don't lose sight of it's supposed to be fun. Enjoy what you're doing, because when it turns into a job and you make it where it's not fun, or you put so much pressure on yourself that the results aren't where you want them to be, and it makes you, just want to stop, then don't. I mean, then I'm gonna say don't do it, but just rethink of what you're doing and just enjoy where you're at. Enjoy traveling the country with your family and enjoy being at the races, because I had to do this thing last week and they interviewed me and they asked me about, you know, what would I do if I didn't do this? And I said, it's really tough, because I have a lot of friends at the track over all the years of doing this. I've got a ton of friends that are like family. And if I just got aggravated and sold everything and went home, how many people would I never see again? And riders need to remember that too, that these are kids you grew up with. This is your family away from, these are the people you spent the most time with. And so just enjoy your time, enjoy it. I mean, had a young man lose his life this past weekend racing at Mammoth, and what a tragic deal. And I'm sure that family will always look back on the travels and the all night rides and eating at the worst food places, and all the stuff that's going to make you smile. So sometimes it's not just the race, it's everything else with it. The race is just a small part of what we do.
Right. It is. It is. I've been very blessed in my career to travel as long as I did, and I still miss, my racing family that, you don't get to see them anymore.
No, and who would have ever thought? I mean, if all of us that are, say we're 12, 14 years old again, and who would have ever thought that our love for four wheelers and dirt bikes would have give us an opportunity to go all over the world? I mean, there's not but what, 100 people that can say that. I mean, how special is that?
Pretty, it's pretty special because I've got to go do some really cool things.
Right.
And my friends that I grew up with just know that I was never home.
Right. Right. And that's what I say, and to be able to go to, I mean, Europe and just wherever, and to be at some of these places and somebody recognizes you. How cool is that?
Pretty cool.
And it's just, that's what I'm saying. When people say, well, why do you do this? I said, if I really told you, you wouldn't understand. It's just, we just enjoy being a part of it. And enjoy not being a part of it. What I'm saying, sometimes it's really cool to just step back and watch, whether it's the rider or the mechanic or whatever that you help get to that level, and watch them enjoy being the guy. And you don't have to stand beside of them. You can stand back and be like, we helped make that happen, and let them enjoy it, and just be proud that you helped get them there. And so it's that part of it's fun.
That's a great perspective. It's a perspective that I never even had envisioned that I would hear. Um, that's it's probably a little bit more emotional than you would think, because being in the position that I am and have done some of the things that I've got to do, to listen to you talk about the riders and the mechanics and the families with the emotion and the passion that you do, that's incredible, because you normally don't see that portion in our industry, and you definitely don't see that from a business standpoint.
Yeah, but it's a little tougher that we don't do this as part of making a living. This is, and I think that makes us look at it a little different, you know. So
You know, and that's true. But some of the guys that you do employ, that is how they make their living.
it is, and I'm very and I take that very serious. You know, people that have, whether it's the construction side or the race side. I mean, the people that have made a commitment to come to work here, I take that responsibility. They have house payments and car payments and kids and, you know, and families, and we take that very serious. And so we have to make sure that we keep this train rolling, because we got to make sure that everybody's families took care of.
You know, one question I forgot to ask you. I apologize.
No,
Uh, you said that you had a new rider coming on board. Are you allowed to announce that?
no, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there is going to be a new guy on the team.
Yeah, there will be there has to be contractually there has to be.
Okay.
We've made an offer, and I think that we're really close. I think we're there, but I don't think we can talk about that until probably mid-October.
Okay.
But I'm excited about where we're headed. So
How about Dylan? How did
Dylan,
come to how did that come to be?
Dylan, Dylan wanted to ride a Honda. Dylan is really good friends with the Lawrences. So if you go back and look at the history when they were on the GPs, they actually all rode Kawasaki's together when those were kids and Dylan was doing the GP circuit. So Dylan's wife and Hunter's wife are best friends. And Dylan wanted to get on a Honda. Well, Honda didn't have a spot for him with Hunter and Jet. So we all collectively together helped make this happen. And so for Dylan, we had a 2-year deal. And now Dylan did some testing on some parts and a few things that Honda was wanting to test. So that's what made it make sense to have him on a 450. Dylan has been a lot of fun to get to know. You know, Dylan's, I think a lot of Dylan. And Dylan has, he's got a few things health wise going on, and he wanted to make a deal with me before motocross started this year. And he said he wanted to be able to get healthy. And he said he wanted to take the motocross season off, and he would come back and do the last few rounds and do SMX. And if I was okay with him not riding motocross, he wants to get healthy and come back and do supercross only next year. And I said, absolutely. And so, I don't know if we would hire another 450 person after Dylan is done, because Honda really supported this, and I don't know if they would support. Um, you know, Japan's not going to let another Honda team come in and compete against Honda. They're not going to support, you know, give you the support to do that. So that's why we focus on the 250 program mostly. But Dylan has been, he has been great, been a lot of fun.
That's pretty incredible. And he's a multi-time world champion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
I'll tell you a funny story about Dylan before we leave. So we're out in California, and we're at the Honda track. And so Hunter and Jet and Joe Shimoda and Dylan and Cullen Park were all riding together, and we're all out there riding. And Cullen was really struggling and not doing some of the sections like these guys were doing. And so the Honda guys brought everybody in to stop for a minute and talk to him. And he said, now, guys, Cullen, just enjoy the moment, enjoy where you're at. Some of the greatest riders in the world have rode here. So just enjoy it. You know, quit putting so much pressure on yourself. You got to look at Hunter and Jet. I mean, they're the greatest in their country. I mean, Shimoda, he's the greatest of his country. Dylan, the greatest in his country. And all of them live in Claremont, Florida, and that's where they ride. And Dylan looked at Cullen. He said, bro, you not even the fastest in the town you live in. And it was so funny. And then, but that just broke the ice with everybody was laughing and cutting up. And, you know, Cullen was giving him a bunch of lip back. But I'm saying that to see these guys to see their personalities off the track or off the race, you know, to see them cut up and be friends, it's a lot of fun. So
that is so incredible. So as we come to a close here, ATV Talk runs 3 different shows. We do a podcast show that is on all your podcast platforms. It drops Tuesdays at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We also drop that same episode on YouTube, generally on a Saturday, so that if you didn't catch it on the podcast version and you wanted to watch it, you can catch it on YouTube. We do a live Instagram show on Wednesdays. It's called Bench Prep Conversation. It's at 6 o'clock. I'm hoping that Team Phoenix will be sending me riders for all of my shows. I also do an industry show, and this is Sunday mornings live on YouTube. We talk motorsports. We may talk ATVs one day, or a portion of the show, UTVs, motorcycles of all different forms, trophy trucks, whatever it is, because it's an industry show. We'll talk anything. Mr. Eller, I really appreciate you taking the time. I believe that Team Phoenix is doing something very special in the motorcycle ATV industry, and I hope you keep doing it for many, 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 many years. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to share us with your family and friends. The podcast is available on all streaming platforms, and you can find us on social media as ATV-TALK Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter.